Really, if you had fallen asleep on Halloween of last year and woken up today, you wouldn't notice a big difference in the level of the S&P 500. You wouldn't notice a big difference in the level of the 10-year US Treasury. And those are really the two big benchmarks that we use to gauge the health of the markets. What has been happening under the surface, we're calling this the duck market because it's sort of still above the surface, but there's a lot of churning happening underneath, is that we've seen economists' estimates of GDP growth in the United States for 2026 continue to be revised higher. At this point, given what we know about 2025 now, this would actually reflect a slight acceleration in GDP growth from the 2.2% year we had in 25. At the same time, you can see that there has been a correlation between the tendency of economists to revise up their GDP estimates for this year and the performance of cyclical stocks versus defensive stocks. Now, these categories are not as clean as they sound. There's also a huge category related to growth that can fall into both cyclical and defensive that has been creating a lot of the volatility, both in the software names, AI exposed names, AI capex investors. But generally, cyclical firms, compared to those that are more defensive, have been outperforming. That's not a huge surprise when you consider that economic surprises have generally been positive. So, as the market's understanding of the economy and the outlook becomes more constructive, they're going to tend to favor more names that are more exposed in a positive way to economic growth. It's especially been true in the survey data. For a long time, business surveys, consumer surveys have been quite poor. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen a big jump in the quality of that data compared to what's expected, not just in a handful of data points, but really in almost every data point we've seen. The ISM manufacturing report for January, a lot of the Fed surveys that are sort of mini ISMs, mini PMIs, for manufacturing sentiment, as well as consumer sentiment, which, as I'll point out, is still on the poor side, but less poor than it was for most of last year. The reason this matters is because when we see things like the ISM sentiment survey moving in a positive direction, it tends to mean that corporate earnings growth is going to be well supported. A lot of analyst estimates for corporate profits, here we're looking at the S&P 500, when they tend to respond in a positive way 3 to 6 months after jumps in the ISM. There is a historically strong and positive correlation between these two figures. When we look at the real economic data, so not just the surveys, but things that are actually happening in the economy, capital goods orders indicating that capital expenditures are moving up. We're seeing more orders, more shipments for those goods. We're also seeing manufacturing output improve. We have been in a multi-year manufacturing recession in terms of total output. That has now improved slightly. We're not in a manufacturing boom or a capex boom at the moment, but things are finally heading in the right direction. I said the consumer surveys have been less bad recently than they had been in the last couple of months. You can see that on this graph. Consumers' assessments of their own personal financial outlook, their outlook for the labor market, still poor relative to the very long history over which we've been collecting this data, but not as bad, moving in the right direction. And you can see the labor market, while still not strong, has been improving on the margins. We're seeing here the weekly data that we get on initial jobless claims, continuing claims. On a year over year basis, there are fewer people today collecting unemployment insurance than there were at the same time in 2025, which is a very useful metric. We get other things like the unemployment rate, job creation. We know those have been on the weak side. We only get those about once a month. These we get every week. And they tell us that there's not a whole lot to worry about in terms of widespread layoffs happening in the economy at the moment. Where we are more concerned, however, is on the income side. We are seeing income growth stall out after accounting for inflation. That's been true since the middle of 2025. Spending growth has continued to move up. So GDP growth has been supported by the fact that consumers are spending more money than they're seeing inflated away. So the amount of stuff that people are buying is continuing to move up. That supported GDP growth last year. But there is a limit to which these two things can diverge. We can't continue to see spending growth increase while incomes are flat. There are some segments of the population that are less sensitive to the labor market, people who are retired, people who are living off the wealth that they've accumulated and seen grow in a rapid way over the last couple of years rather than their take-home pay. But for the bulk of consumers, it's very hard to disentangle these two things. You can see the savings rate go down and average personal savings have gone down in the last year, but that can't continue to happen. It's a little bit like pulling a rubber band back. Eventually, when the savings rate's lower and lower and lower, it puts more stress on households and it introduces more overall risk for the economy. So mostly good news, but had to end on a note of caution. We think things are getting better in many segments of the economy, not especially quickly, but at least encouragingly heading in the right direction. The one area where we need to see more is on take-home pay and job creation. We'll have a lot more in the next couple of weeks. Thanks very much for watching.